Secret guardians, starry bright, fiery ones beyond our sight, saints of yore, Buddhas too, guiding lights to me and you.
Chapter 20. Belfast, Northern Ireland, Queen's Quarters, De Vries Residence, College Green Mews. June 1999. Anna rang me quite early that Sunday morning. In my dimly lit bedroom, I reached over to the nightstand to pick up my phone and offer a sleepy hello. I was hoping the call was a wrong number, so I could go back to sleep. I had just had the most terrible nightmare. Jian, we're going to need you. I'm coming to pick you up. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Hurry up and get ready. Okay, I said, but her words hadn't really registered. Jian, wake up, we need you. What? I jolted awake. Anna's voice had a command in it that I'd never heard before. What's the story? We're going to Claire's. I'll tell you what I know on the way. I've got to wake Mama. Bye. The connection dropped off. On the ride over, Anna filled me in on our mission of mercy. Mika, Claire's roommate, I don't think you've met her. Something bad happened to a friend of hers. An uneasy feeling arose in me. I answered, now wary. Oh heavens, my dreams. Last night I dreamed that I'd gotten myself lost and had risked a shortcut through a bad side of town. Not that there were any good sides in this astral town. My chosen route led deeper into a hellish neighbourhood, with spectre-like figures appearing out of buildings and alleyways, first staring at me, then following me. I tried to run, but it was as if I was in quicksand. Then, finally, I realised with great relief that I was safe in my own bed. My mind hurtled into the second dream, bitter as an Arctic night. Mika had been in it. Like the pins of a lock tumbling into place, images clicked into focus. The record opened, an Akashic memory I'd just witnessed, but that my mind had tried to dismiss, probably because it had been so disturbing. I went cold. It came to me that I had already seen what Anna was about to tell me. This friend of Mika's, she's at Claire's. She needs help. Yesterday they went to some kind of a festival, Mika and the girl. Mika said they got separated, then something happened to her friend. Something bad. I know, I interrupted. Can you pull over for a minute? Anna gave me a puzzled look but complied, easing off the road and into a spot next to the curb. Traffic was almost non-existent. Belfast was still asleep. What do you mean you know, Devushka? Anna asked with an intensity uncharacteristic of her, especially this early on a weekend morning. By now my Russian friend was used to my idiosyncrasies, but this was one she knew nothing about. Yet. I told her nothing about my Akashic journeys, not even references to my father or mother in their younger years. I know what happened to her, Anna, I said. She looked at me long and hard before replying in an even tone. How would you know this, Devushka? I thought of trying to explain, but just as quickly dismissed the idea. No time now. It doesn't matter, but I do. Please trust me on this. Anna hesitated again. I was asking her not to ask, though I wasn't being explicit about it. Nevertheless, she got the message, reading me correctly as usual. Okay, she said, satisfied. You know what happened at the festival then? Unfortunately, I do, yeah. Anna nodded, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Claire got a call from Mika, who told her she brought her friend back to Belfast late last night. I'm not sure how, because Mika doesn't have a car. I do not know why she didn't take her straight to A&E. I didn't know that, but it's not hard to imagine given what she went through. Anna seemed to look through me, as if trying to see into my head. Then she backed off, as if she knew now was not the time to worry about why I knew what I did. What happened to her, Devushka? What did you hear? I hadn't heard anything. I was there, via the Akashic, a witness to what Kirsten had endured. More than seeing or hearing, I had lived the scene, as if I had been in its awful vortex. But if Anna was assuming I'd somehow heard about the incident, I wasn't going to disabuse her of the notion. The story I got was Mika and Kirsten Lindstrom, the girl, attended a festival on a farm in County Sligo. The event was billed as some kind of spiritual happening. What happened to Kirsten was evil. She was attacked as part of a sick ritual. Anna again looked surprised. You've heard more than me. Sounds like you heard from someone who was there. Well, I had been there myself, or at least the Akashic equivalent of there. Anna's words came back to me. Jian, we're going to need you. And for the first time that morning, I wondered why. After all, her mother, a doctor who treated trauma cases at Belfast City Hospital, was also on her way. Why do you think I can help with this? I asked. Anna gave me a sidelong glance. I thought your ability to see might help. My stomach lurched. Though she hadn't spelled it out, I knew what she meant. Anna, I can't just snap my fingers and see how I did before. Ever since... You'll be fine. Trust this. But I'm the one who has to look. Anna's reply was firm. Just be still and see what you see. If it is meant, God will do the rest. Just be still. Okay, easy to say, but to do? Well, not so much. Truth is, I suspected my former gift was back in full force. I'd had indications in recent weeks. Glimmers of the subtle world with its otherworldly colours had become more commonplace to the point that I'd begun to take them for granted, as I'd always done before my wrong turn into my neighbourhood stoner subculture. But the heart of my problem wasn't an inability to see. The truth was that I was deathly afraid of what I'd be dealing with. I had witnessed individuals haunted by entities, what some call demons, like the worm creature on Mr. Meehan. But I'd never been called upon to inspect a person's aura, especially not one whose owner was in shock and suffering. Would I need to go a step further and fight the possessing entities? It was one thing for Luke to call us to fight takers, other mortals who actively try to steal God's light from others. But to go up against a demonic foe? I had no confidence I was up to whatever task was in store for me. We pulled into the car park next to Mika's building, located a stone's throw from historic Queen's University in the heart of Belfast. Claire met us outside the building, a drab 2-storey brownstone with littered shrubs and ancient single-pane windows. Classic student housing. I'm so glad you're here, Claire said, as she led us down a hallway that smelled of spilt beer and cigarettes. We stopped in front of Mika's door before entering. Mika's in a bad way, Claire whispered. So we actually have 2 wounded on our hands. Though Kirsten's the worst. She's been catatonic ever since they were dropped off here late last night. Mika tried to take Kirsten to the A&E, but the girl just balled up on Mika's bed and wouldn't let her close. Anna, Mika must have collapsed too last night because she didn't call until right before I called you. She's not thinking straight, and we need to call the police. But first she needs a doctor. Claire looked right knackered. Her hair was a tangled mess, and there were dark bags under her eyes. Her body sagged as if she hadn't slept all night. Anna's phone rang. Claire and I waited while she answered it. "Mama will be here in half an hour," she announced. "I'm talking to Claire and Jian, Mama. We just got here." "Thank you for coming, Tanya," I said, loud enough for her to hear on the other end of Anna's phone. Anna listened to her mother for a moment more, then turned to me. "She says not to wait for her. She wants you to go in and see what you can." Whew. I was being seriously pushed, first by Anna and now by Tanya. They seemed to have more confidence in me than I had in myself. Then I remembered the saint's answer, engraved upon my heart in response to another of my doubts. "You have the gift, beloved. You already know how." Like a runner getting a second wind, resolve began to grow in me. I somehow knew I had to do this, come what may. I steeled myself for what I was about to see. What Tanya and Anna would view would be bad enough, but assuming I would see into the subtle world, I would view Kirsten's torment on full display. At the time I didn't understand the process, but over the years I've learned that being able to see a person's aura requires me to enter a detached, almost meditative state. Thankfully, I've also learned how to ignore this strange gift. Now, while I'm about my day, I don't notice others' auras unless there's a compelling reason. "Ready?" Claire asked. When we both nodded, she turned her key in the lock and opened the door. Upon entering Mika's nondescript apartment, Claire handled the introductions, then took charge. Mika was sitting on the living room couch, her eyes wild and her hair frazzled. Poor thing. I don't think she slept a wink all night. "Please show Jian in," Claire said to Mika. I briefly wondered what Anna had told Claire about my inner seeing, but I had to let it go and focus on the task at hand. I slipped into Mika's bedroom, which was toasty warm. Despite the overheated room, Kirsten Lindstrom was shaking under a layer of blankets. The top one a down-filled quilt. I approached her carefully. "Kirsten, I'm Jian," I said. "I've come to help you." The huddled girl did not acknowledge me. I spoke to her gently, as if instructing a child. "Kirsten, I know something bad happened to you. A doctor will be here soon. You're going to like her. She'll take care of you." The waifish girl stirred. Her head inched out from under her covers. I slowly pulled them down to see if I could discern any obvious physical traumas. Involuntarily, I recoiled at the crazed, feral look in her eyes. I fought to keep my peace, slowing my breathing while silently calling to Mother Mary to be with us. Concentrating, I studied Kirsten, as I had first learned to do while watching the aimless Ardougne tufts from my rooftop perch above Crumlin Road. As I used to, I began to see colours. Then I saw worse. But though what I was witnessing was horrific, my fear had vanished. I had entered a detached state. The girl's aura had been violently rent in several places. One place in particular. She had been violated. Like a knife wound, there was a long, blackish rip where she had been assaulted. There were lesser rents everywhere, especially around her throat and chest, Sure enough, there were blackish wisps, entities hovering about. Some had succeeded in penetrating her being and festered within her. Hungry, oily, wandering things that had found purchase in a soul torn open and bleeding light. Kirsten began to thrash. The entities attached to her swelled and darkened. I took a step back. Instinctively I cried out to Mother Mary, "Blessed Mother, send your angels!" I kept calling and calling. As if the room had suddenly been teleported to a sunlit glen, a soft, warming glow was everywhere, like walking outside on the sweetest of summer mornings. Angels, I instantly sensed. Like feeding crows startled from roadkill, entities fled as spirits of light swooped in to attend to Kirsten. Some of the dark things lingered at the limits of my sight, but vanished completely as more and more crystalline patterned light, pure white and sun-bright, continued to intensify around Kirsten. Ever so gradually, the girl's auric colours began to change, like a rosy glow, returning to a child's face as she recovers from illness. Soon thereafter she calmed, allowing me to cradle her head in my hands. Still praying, but now quietly, I replaced the quilt and continued to comfort her. As if it were a normal, everyday occurrence, I felt a subtle tingling, the saints pouring light energy through my touch into the traumatized girl. She flinched at first, but I continued to hold her. She shook all the while. My hands grew warm as emerald-tinged light passed through me into the girl. Such a thing had never happened to me before. Of course, it was not of my doing. I was just the conduit for Mary's healing light, not unlike God's love flowing through a praying mother into her sick child. Still, I was in complete awe that I could be used in such a way. Days later I would wonder on this, but not deeply. I never considered its future implications for me, if any. And my only wondering at the time was why it was me who was thrust into such a role. Just weeks ago I was inhaling hashish. It could easily have been me ending up like Kirsten, if I had taken one too many wrong turns in that shady environment. The girl blinked, as if waking from a deep sleep. For an instant her eyes fluttered open. The feral terror of moments ago had begun to fade. Her ragged breathing had slowed. She rolled over toward the wall. Mika gasped. I hadn't even noticed she'd been watching all the while. "That's the first time she's moved all morning," she said. I heard voices in the next room. Then Anna's mother Tanya burst into the room. The physician was all business, as if focusing on the next trauma case rolling into Belfast City Hospital, as she had done 1,000 times. She took one look at Kirsten, then turned to me. "Rape?" she mouthed silently. I nodded yes. I was badly shaken, and I was trying mightily to check my emotions. Anna came to my side and put her arm around me. "I knew you could help her," she whispered. I glimpsed her shiny aura. Like a refreshing wind, her light helped me ease my trembling. I gave silent thanks to the saints for the reminder of the goodness in people. Because Tanya worked as a physician in Belfast City Accident and Emergency Department, she was well acquainted with victims of abuse. She went to work examining Kirsten. Anna had contacted Queen's University to set the police and health service responses in motion. The university said they would handle contacting the girl's parents in Sweden. Within the hour, Tanya was able to escort Kirsten out to her car and buckle her in for the ride over to the hospital. Anna and I followed. preparing to keep the vigil for the girl's healing at least through the day. We tucked a thoroughly exhausted and distraught Mika into her bed before we left. Claire stayed with Mika, who also would require help to heal, we knew, but first rest. Yes, the realms of hell are destinations in another dimension, being the lowest levels of the astral underworld. But hell is also rampant right here on Earth, and sometimes unknowing ones take a wrong turn and are ensnared by its denizens, who may be very much in the physical. Clearly Kirsten had fallen prey. Hell resides within the narcissists, the deceivers, the lightless ones, and these takers are as common as roaches, and like roaches, they feed in the dark on the children of the One. This must stop, I thought. But what could I do? I was only one person. For days my outrage burned as a white-hot fire within me. Then one day, a simple answer came to me. I needed to take the fight to the takers. I just had to find the best way.